House needs painting, grass needs mowing, where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mossy Oak and Liqua Molly.
Welcome to Off the Water with Hank Parker. I'm your co-host, Sarah Beth, and you are?
Well, hello, Sarah Beth. I'm Hank Parker. It's so good to be here today. It's an exciting time, podcast time.
Oh, yeah, it's podcast time, and I'm about to put you on the hot seat.
Oh,
so you
no.
keep avoiding all these questions. People want to know, how did you go from bass fishing to racing to hunting to fishing and doing it all? You were a jack of all trades.
Well, and a master of none.
Master of none.
Yeah, that's a jack of all trades and a master of none. You know, I started out, and I've answered this question before, but I really never have answered all the questions on how we got into the racing deal and then how we got into the hunting show. And I just never have gone down all of the roads. And I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, because if you listen long enough, if you stay with us for the whole podcast, you'll realize there's going to be one point in time you're going to think I'm a pretty smart guy, and then you're going to realize how dumb I am. So I've done some good things, and I've done some really bad things. But fishing, let's start off. That's where my career started.
Yep,
Fishing. I was... from a kid, 16 years old, you know, every kid that plays Major League Baseball, plays Little League Baseball, thinks that one day they want to be a Major League Baseball player. Mm-hmm, you know, I mean, it's just, we dream, you know. I used to play Army. I always wanted to be a great soldier when I was 5 and 6 and 7, 8 years old. Well, as I got older, Blake Honeycutt from Hickory, North Carolina was right up the road. He was my hero. I wanted to be like Blake. You know, every time I'd catch a fish, I'd think, man, I'd like Blake Honeycutt, you know, or like Bill Dance. And so I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman. But, you know, I kept that to myself. I never shared that because I never really thought that would ever be a reality. So, you know, all these kids that dream about a Major League Baseball career, they don't talk about that. They just, in the back of their mind, they think.
Because half the time you tell somebody, they're like, ha, yeah, right. Like, you know, you're met with doubt. If you express, like, hey, I'm dreaming about doing X, Y, Z, I wanted to be an Olympian. But then, look, had surgery on both my feet, and it just did not work out. So, you know, that's life. Yeah,
it is life. And so I always wanted to be a pro fisherman. But I kept that to myself. And then as time went on, I got into Lincoln County Bassmasters and a bunch of great guys. And I went from Lincoln County Bassmasters to the Gaston Bassmasters. They were headquartered out of Gastonia, Gaston County. And so I got in that club with some awesome fishermen, as well as the Lincoln County Club. But some of these guys, Jerry Ryan, J.B. Valentine, Charlie Foster, some of these guys fished on the pro circuit.
Right.
Tommy Chapman. And so I'm watching and competing against these guys, and Jerry Ryan was very impressive, very, very, very impressive. And Jerry had a good career. He made a full-time career, and he did a great job. But I'm watching these guys, and I'm competing against them. And one day I was fishing with Tommy Chapman, and Tommy had just done well in a tournament. I don't remember where it was, but I was impressed. It may have been Lake Seminole. And we were fishing, and I said, man, that's pretty cool that you went down there and finished fourth. Or he had a top 5 or top 10 finish for sure. I don't remember where it was, but it was impressive. And he stopped, and he said, I want you to look at me. You're 4 times the fisherman I am. I said, nah. He said, don't even tell me that. You wear me out every time. Every time we fish together, you always figure out where they are. I'm telling you, you could win on the pro circuit. You got what it takes, and you're crazy for not doing it. It was the first time anybody had ever told me that. And I really started thinking about it. Well, I'm looking at Jerry. I can hold my own with Jerry. I can hold my own with J.B. Valentine. I can hold my own with Charlie Foster. And here I am with Tommy Chapman, and he's telling me, not me telling him, he's telling me I'm a much better fisherman than he is, and he just finished in the top 10 in a national tournament, I think the top 5. So I went home that night and I thought, man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I had a boat that I had 175 horsepower, and it was not legal for bass. So I had to start looking, what tournament circuit am I going to fish? There was National Bass, United Bass, American Bass, and BASS. Well, BASS was the kingpin, the one I wanted to fish, but I would have had to buy another boat or another motor. I had a Ranger 175A with a 175 horsepower Merc, and that was illegal for BASS. So I started fishing National Bass, and I was amazed how well I did. There's so much more to professional fishing than being able to catch fish. Being able to read water, being able to know when to move, kind of like Kenny Rogers' song, The Gambler, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. All that plays a big part in being successful as a fisherman. And for some reason, I had a niche for that. For some reason, I could figure that out. Okay, we need to make a move. Okay, I need to do this. Okay, I need to do that. And so, man, I had an incredible year. Won Angler of the Year, and some great fishermen. Billy Westmoreland, Roland. There were a lot of people fishing National Bass. And so I just had an incredible year. Won Angler of the Year. And the next year, I never won a tournament. My first year, I won Angler of the Year, but I did not win a tournament. I finished second 3 times. Finished second 3 stinking times. And so then the next year, I won my first national tournament. When I won my first national tournament, I won at Clark's Hill in Georgia, came to Lake Norman and won at Lake Norman, went to Kentucky Lake and won at Kentucky Lake. I won 3 in a row. There I never won a tournament, and I won 3 in a row. But
I know you were over the moon.
Oh man, it all came together. So after that happened, I said I can afford a new boat. I borrowed $10,000 on a 90-day note from the Northwestern Bank in Maiden, North Carolina. A banker named Steve Sims believed in me and loaned me the money, and I started fishing. But I paid him back and had enough money to buy a new boat. He bought me a new Ranger boat and put a 150 Mercury on it and started fishing bass. And first year in bass, I finished 9th in the Angler of the Year race and finished maybe 9th in the Bassmaster Classic. The first Classic was at Ross Barnett, Mississippi. So I had a great year. Then the next year, I finished in the top 10 in the Angler of the Year race, and I won the Bassmaster Classic on Lake Texoma, and that was 1979. So my career just took off. And then as time went on, you realized if you're going to make a living bass fishing, you got to have sponsors, and you got to work hard for them.
Do you think that's why you started your TV show, was to help promote that?
Absolutely. So the way you get sponsors, and a lot of these kids in high school, they ask me, how do I get a sponsor? How do I get a sponsor? We need sponsors. Help me get a sponsor. Well, let me explain this. The only way you're valuable to a sponsor is if you have enough name recognition, enough credibility that you've got influence on the consumer. When you endorse something, they'll buy it because of your endorsement. Mm-hmm. And so you got to work hard to do that. Yeah. And you've got to get a lot of exposure, a lot of notoriety, win a lot of tournaments, and be honest, have credibility. Don't lie to them. Don't sell them a pig in a boat. If it's not a good product and you promote it, you're going to pay a bad price, because when you're a fisherman, you are your own commodity. You don't have a product. You are the product. And so you have to live by what you state and what you promote. And if you sell somebody something that doesn't live up to their expectations, you're going to pay a price for that. So I was always really, really, really careful not to do that. And I got in trouble with some of my sponsors because they would come out with a product that was less than than what it should be, and I wouldn't endorse it. I got fired from Humminbird over that when Humminbird Texonic Industries sold out to Tailflex, and Tailflex brought in their marketing team, and they brought back the Hank Parker and Jimmy Houston flasher. Well, it wouldn't work, and I wouldn't put my name on it. So I was given an ultimatum: put my name on it or hit the road. So
you said, take my name off of that piece of junk right now.
Yeah, Humminbird makes a great product, but that wasn't one of them. Yeah. So I ended up getting fired and went to work for Garmin for a few years, and then came back to Humminbird when Johnson Outdoors bought them. And when Johnson Outdoors bought them, I had been with them forever and watched what they'd put behind Minn Kota, and they swore to me that they were going to do the same with Humminbird that they did with Minn Kota. They were going to make it the best in the business, and I think they did that. And they were very faithful, so that was a good relationship. And so we built on that. And I would go to different outdoor riders, and you'd get an article in Bassmaster. And Bassmaster was hard. Bob Cobb, whom I love, Bob Cobb never did really care for me a whole lot. Bob and I are great friends now, but my whole career, I was not one of Bob Cobb's favorite.
Why?
I went to Cuba. When Racecars stood against that in 1976, I went to Cuba. And Ray got over it, but I don't think Bob ever did.
He held a grudge.
Yeah, I just don't think he cared for me. But nevertheless, so I got very little in Bassmaster. I had to really, really win big to get in Bassmaster. But I got in National Bass and American Bass and Sports Afield and Field and Stream and Outdoor Life, and I'd get articles from time to time. But I'd pretty much maxed that out, so the only way that I could self-promote was to have my own platform. Well, Bill Dance, who is my hero, Bill had done and has continued to do an incredible job in television. And so I looked at Dance. Jerry McInnes had a show. His show was different. And Jerry was a different guy. Good guy, but a different guy. Dance was right. I mean, he was right where I thought I could fit in. So I kind of followed his lead, and I started my television show in 1985. We hit the air. And it was good. So I promoted. And I just, TNN, the Gaylords were awesome people. When TNN came along, Eddie Gaylord, that whole Gaylord group was great to work with. They wanted you to be profitable. They were delivering gigantic numbers. They had PBA rodeo, NASCAR, country music, and outdoors.
Wow, that's quite
so every
incredible.
redneck in the country, they just left it on TNN.
Yeah.
And so our numbers were through the roof. And we made a lot of money. A lot of money. People say, boy, that was awesome that you had a vision to see where you were going when you started fishing with that, barring that 90-day note. I had no idea where it was going. I just wanted to fish. I thought I could make a living and grind it out. I had no idea it would hit the plateau that it did. And so I was just extremely blessed. But I also have always believed, Forrest Wood said it better than anybody that I've ever heard. Forrest said, it's no use to dream if you're not going to work. And it's no use to work if you're not going to dream.
It can't just fall into your lap. If you have a dream, you got to chase it. You know, it's you can't have an expectation and then just expect things to just fall into your life. Like, yes, God opens doors, but you got to walk through it. Yeah. You know, you can't expect the thing to come out the door to you. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of what happened in my life. You know, I was just blessed beyond my measure, and doors were open, and I just walked through them. And it just was incredible for me, and I had so many great years. Well, then I really got to feeling guilty. And I go back. I went through a marriage that I lost my first wife because of greed on my part, selfishness, and I realized it too late. Absentee husbands are not very good husbands. Absentee dads are not very good dads.
Well, that doesn't work out really with any marriage. I mean, like, look at military, for instance. Like, a lot of the men that are in women that deploy, and they're gone for multiple months. So if you're gone 9 months out of the year on a deployment, you're gone more than you are home with your spouse. So that's going to create conflict in general.
Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard. And I think it's harder for a career person than it is military, because there's understanding that you don't control your deployment, but I did control the fact that I chose to go and fish these tournaments. So
it was more personal.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, I realized it, and so financially, I'd put in everything. I didn't have much going for me other than my fishing career, and I couldn't let go of what I had built because it was providing great income. So I didn't want to let that go, and but I knew if I won the Classic the second time, the Bassmaster Classic is not a lot of money, prize money, but it's incredible opportunity with that title. Being a world champion provides you opportunity to get endorsements to make a lot of money. And it changed my life in 1979. I went from really scraping to make it to having a surplus, and it was really cool. Well, then in 89 when I won it, I realized, from anything from this point forward is greed on my part, because I can parlay that second world championship into a lot of money, and I can make a living without competing. So I need to go home and be a husband and be a dad. And so that's what I went back. It was too late for my marriage, but it was great with my kids.
Right.
And so we all did kid things, boy things, fun things, and one of those were racing go-karts. We started racing go-karts. I raced with them, and we just had so much fun. And it's just like I said about when I was 16 years old, my dream was to be a professional bass fisherman. Well, those kids get behind the wheel of that go-kart, their dream was one day be a Dale
NASCAR,
Earnhardt.
yeah.
That's it, man. And I've always been like Forrest. It's no use to dream if you're not going to work. It's no use to work if you're not going to dream, man. You got to have a dream. So I lived the dream of my boys with them, And so NASCAR, I came down here to the farm one day with Earnhardt Sr. and Jr., and
wait, pause. How did y'all even meet? How did you even meet these
I
people?
met Dale Earnhardt at Metrolina at a dirt track race before he ever hit the big time, and we just started talking about hunting. Donnie Reeves was his buddy, and Donnie knew I deer hunted, and he told Earnhardt, he said, "Hey, old Hank's a big deer hunter," so we got started talking deer hunting, and that's how our friendship was really built on deer hunting and outdoors more than racing. But anyway, he and I became great friends. We got us a deer lease in Texas, and he used to come down here. I have a field that we still call it the Earnhardt Field, but it was his. I gave him my word. He'd put his stands up there. Would nobody hunt that field but him. He'd come hide his truck in my barn and different. I wouldn't even be here, a lot of times. But he came down with Dale Jr. over a weekend. Not a weekend. It was like a Thursday, and so when he left, Hank Jr. and Dale Jr. sat on the porch alone. I should have interrupted them and broke up that party, but Dale Sr. and I sat in the house a lot, and they sat on the porch and talked. Well, I didn't even know Dale Jr. was racing. I had no idea that he was racing street jock at that time. But anyway, after that weekend or that hunt, on Monday the following week, Earnhardt calls me and said, "Hey, you got a trailer?" I said, "What do you mean a trailer?" He said, "A car hauler trailer." I said, "I don't have a car hauler trailer, but I got a flatbed I haul my tractors on." He said, "That'll work. Bring it over here. I got something Dale Jr. got a race car he wants Hank Jr. to have."
No.
I said, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
That was the start. So I ended up getting this race car. Hank Jr. actually won races in this thing. And Dale Jr. told me, and when they did the podcast, Hank Jr., he said, "Man, you took a car I couldn't win with, and you won races." So Hank Jr. had a lot of talent, and it was obvious go-kart racing and in the street stock division, and then later late model, and so racing just became a dream. Well, I'm a dreamer, and I believe that if you want it bad enough and work hard enough, you can make it happen. So I took the nest-deep plunge, and I jumped in racing head first. I bought Darrell Waltrip had a team. He had a Winston Cup, a Busch Grand National, an ASA, and an all-pro team. I bought everything but his Cup team. I bought his Busch team, his ASA team, and his all-pro team. We put all that together. Neil Bonnet was going to help me, so we had Neil set up to drive the Busch car the first year.
Wow.
And that was the year Neil got killed. And so we set a year out. And man, racing got crazy after that. There would be 70 and 80 cars showing up to qualify for a 35-car field. And 25 or 30 of them had provisionals, so it's a 43-car field. 43 cars qualified, and 35 had provisionals. So you only had, 8 spots? And there'd be 50 or 60 people competing for those 8 spots.
Wow. Yeah, so very cutthroat, very competitive.
Oh, it was unbelievable. So just to qualify to make the race was a huge expense and challenge. And, man, I jumped into that thing, and it got crazy. I mean, I went through lots of money quickly. I mean, Earnhardt told me early on, he said, if you want to learn how to make a small fortune racing, you start with a large one. And it won't take you long.
To get
and he
to
was
the small one.
Spot on, man. I mean, it was crazy money. And I wasn't prepared for that. When I first bought Waltrip's Busch team, it took about $900,000 to run for the year. But then Neil got killed, and we set the year out, and we came back, and I get confused on what year that was, 93 or whenever it was. And it went from not even having a full field the last year that Waltrip ran to having 50 and 60 cars go home trying to get those 8 spots that weren't provisionals, all in 2 years. And so we set that 1 year out, and we came back, and it gone from 900,000 to 3 million. And I just wasn't prepared for all of that. And we were racing out of pocket. We didn't have sponsors. You got to build up. So we get a few little sponsors along the way, and then we got AC Delco came along, then Humminbird came along, and then finally the Marine Corps came along. So we got some really good sponsors and was able to hang on. But I said I was going to write a book one time, from rags to fishing to riches to racing to rags.
Not rags.
I went full circle. God,
so funny.
I went so broke, it was unbelievable. When we finally, Hank Jr. went to drive for C.C. Welliver, and Billy went to drive for Rusty Wallace, and I was able to get rid of that payroll and shut the race shop down and let those boys run for somebody else. It took a burn, but I left there deep in debt, and I had to dig my way out. So Billy and Hank both had a racing career that was fairly short. Hank Jr. chose to get out of racing to go home to raise his family. He had gotten children, and boy, race car drivers sacrifice a lot. They don't have a whole lot of time. And so Hank Jr., he got out of racing on his own choosing. Billy had a bad wreck in Chicago. He blew a right front tire or made contact with another car. I'm not sure exactly how it all happened. I wasn't there. I was in California fishing. But he hit the wall and had a bit of a head injury, and then he was taking a little time off to heal, and while he was trying to get over a concussion, he was in the back seat of a car. A girl was driving a street car, and she pulled out in front of another car, and he got a severe head injury. And Dr. Petty, the neurologist for NASCAR, said that Billy would never drive again. He would never get medical clearance. So it ended Billy's career, which was pretty devastating to Billy. He had worked really hard. He'd been very successful in the late model division and NASCAR's all-pro division, and now he can't compete anymore. So it was pretty devastating to him. And so I said, guys, come on, join me. we've got a lot of fishing opportunities. No, we don't want to fish, Dad. We don't want to be a part of it. We want to start a hunting show. Okay. All right. Well.
All right, then.
We'll just start as a hunting show. I had just discovered come deer, and I was blown away. And so I thought, man, that's the greatest stuff in the world. There's nothing like it. I've never seen anything like it. You could literally pour it out on Johnson grass, and the deer would eat it down into the ground. You know, it was a liquid formulation, and I was just blown away. So I was infatuated, ended up buying come deer, which is a dumb thing in life. Never get mad with your money. Never spend your money on something you're infatuated with. You know, I was over the top with this come deer. I thought this is the greatest stuff in the whole world. So I paid way too much money for it, and didn't have a whole lot of marketing experience, but I knew what worked in the fishing world. So I took that, and we actually did really well with come deer in the beginning, and building the foundation and getting market share and name recognition. We got that thing up to about $4 million in sales, which was pretty incredible for a $29 product in a year. So that was what we were building on the future for our hunting show.
Yeah.
Billy and Hank both wanted to start hunting, so we're going to build a business model that we're going to be different. We're not going to get sponsor money to get by and to make a living off of. We're going to grow this come deer. And about that same time, year 2 of come deer, I ended up with Swacker broadheads. And again, another infatuation deal. I shot the first one, was called a Sonoran broadhead. I shot it and I could not believe it. It was the greatest broadhead I've ever seen. It was the perfect broadhead. Still is today, in my opinion. I'm very biased, so I'll state that right off the bat. I think it's the greatest broadhead that's ever been made. I still shoot it. I've had incredible success. I'll tell one quick Swacker story that gives validity to what I'm saying on the greatest broadhead. We had our hunting show going. We'd been going for about 7 or 8 years, and I was working at the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania show, which was the largest outdoor show in America, other than the Fred Hall show out in California, which is more of diversified. They have yachts and deep sea fishing and bass fishing and hunting and all the other stuff. So, but Harrisburg is strictly redneck hunting and fishing. And so I'm at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. A guy walks up to me, 2 guys actually, and the one guy says, "Hi, Hank, I'm Joe," and the other one, Bob. I don't remember their names. I'm just giving names. Joe and Bob. And Joe said, "Oh, Bob right there killed 4 good deer this year, and he killed them all with your Swacker. I shot 3 deer and didn't find any of them. And I'm using that slip cam broadhead, and I'm through with it. I've had some bad experience." And he said, "I'm going to start shooting a Swacker. And not because Bob killed his 3 and found them all, but I'm going to go to Swacker because of you. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've been watching your TV show now for 8 or 9 years, Flesh and Blood. It started out 3D, and then we changed it to Flesh and Blood." Yeah. He said, "I've been watching that thing for about 8, 9, 10 years.
10 years. Wow.
And you've killed some incredible deer. And you've shot them with that Swacker, and none of them have gone more than about 200 yards. And you ain't made a good shot yet."
That's awful.
Yeah. I said, "Well, it's a great compensator." He said, "Oh, I see that. Right away, I see that." He said, "Where you hit those deer and they don't go," he said, "Man, I'm going to start shooting that broadhead." He corresponded with me the next year. He said, "Man, it's the best thing I ever did." So I was very biased on Swacker, but we promoted Swacker and come deer contently with our show. That was our objective.
Right.
And then Wild Game Innovation came along, and they just killed the market. They put all kind of stuff on the market and at ridiculously low prices. And come deer was pretty complicated to make. It's a whole procedure to get all the ingredients lined up and be pH compatible. And so it was a lot of work and a lot of expense, and got big stainless steel vats with screens in them. It takes a lot of employees. And so we couldn't compete. I mean, they were selling just flavors mixed in water and selling it for for pennies on the dollar what we can make ours for. So it just killed come here deer. And so you look at where I started fishing on a dream that became more successful than I ever dreamt. Then we parlayed that into racing with Billy and Hank, and it became overwhelmingly expensive. My timing in life is everything. My timing was about 2 years behind. Had I started 2 years earlier, we could have been very successful in racing, but we didn't. And so the expenses got out of control. I did not have deep enough pockets to continue. And so the racing venture turned out to be a huge money losing proposition.
Right.
Now, Hank Jr. came to me one day, and we were working with the Marine Corps, and there were some issues going on. And so he sat down at my desk and he said, "Dad, what's going on?" And I explained it to him, and he said, "So if they don't come through, that means you will have lost everything you've worked for your whole life. Will be done." I said, no, that's not what it means at all. What it means is I will have spent everything I've worked for all my life.
Yeah, you didn't lose it, you spent it.
I didn't lose it.
Willingly.
Having to do over, I'd do it again. I did it for my kids, and it was a dream, and I thought it was achievable. And it wasn't something that I just jumped into. It was something that I wanted to do. And it wasn't my fault, not necessarily anybody's fault, that it grew at such a rapid rate, and the expense of that growth was out of control. NASCAR didn't like it either. They tried to back it off and reduce costs, but it just, it went from 900,000 to 3 million. To today, it's, I remember in the documentary with Earnhardt when he got Michael Waltrip a deal with Napa, it was $8 million. And then he had 3 or 4 associate sponsors for another $4 million. Right. So they were spending $12 million back in 2000. I mean, it just got...
And now it's a whoo.
Yeah, now it's $70-80 million. I mean, it's just insane, the amount of money. Well, I got caught in that, and that growth just happened. It's just bad timing.
I don't even want to know the insurance.
It just
makes
bad
me
timing.
sick.
And so it turned out that didn't work out. So then we got in the hunting business, and the hunting business, I mean, it just went... Come here deer sales went to nothing when the competition, and I'm not going to call a name, but there were a lot of competitors jumped in there, and all they were doing was mixing flavor in the water. It was nothing like come here deer. But the consumer didn't know the difference.
Well, it's the marketing. That's when you were saying how come here deer had a poor marketing. Yeah. If somebody is able to pitch something, and a lot of people do this, is that they'll try to overly fluff up a product for you to buy it, and then it's not going to deliver what it is.
We would actually go out and demonstrate, shoot videos of pouring out come here deer on a bush and going back the next day and that bush being annihilated. Then that was before game cameras were really prevalent. Then we started using game cameras. Well, our competition would just one-up us. Whatever we said, whatever we would say, they would one-up us. And there was no regulatory commission. There was nobody there to make sure that this statement had validity. So they would make all these wild statements, and people would buy their product for $5, where our product was $19.95. They would buy theirs for $3, $5, and
sometimes
it didn't deliver.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes you get what you pay for. If you're gonna pay for the cheap stuff, honestly,
but the consumer never realized that.
Yeah.
See, it killed the category. People would not go back and say, "Well, I bought this cheap stuff. I should have bought come here deer." They didn't do that. The category was too new. So they would say, well, I bought that deer attractant stuff and it didn't work for me. Well, no, it didn't work. Had they bought Come Here Deer, it probably would have worked.
So do you still stand by Come Here Deer now?
It's an incredible product.
We should bring it back.
Incredible product, but here's the problem. It's too expensive to make. So we don't make it like we used to. We don't make it in the volume and the quantities that we used to make it because it's just so incredibly expensive of what the market's willing to pay. But what we do have is incredible product. And we've got a corn coat that you can mix with corn that's very inexpensive, and it supercharges that corn. So we've changed the market a lot, and what we do market today is great product, but it's a skeleton of what we marketed at one time, just because people won't pay the price that we need to be paid to make the quantity and quality that we used to make in the liquid. We have a Red Alert and a Pure Gold. Both are great products, but we don't have all the buck juice and stuff that we had early on. So it's a different world, but it's a different market. What we have is great product, but we don't sell that much of it because we don't advertise and we don't market it, because every time we did, somebody would one-up us with a product that wasn't worth a snot, but yet people bought it because they didn't know how to discern the difference. And
it was cheaper.
So it just killed the market. So that really put our hunting show in a bind, because our whole business model was to grow Swacker and Come Here Deer. Now, Swacker's grown really good. Swacker's doing real well. But primarily because the world's greatest archer, Levi Morgan, he started shooting it, and he loved Swacker even before he was shooting it, and we wasn't paying him a penny, not a penny.
He just liked the product.
He told me point blank, he said, I'm going to tell you, it's the greatest broadhead that's ever been built. I love it. I'm going to shoot it. And so we worked out an arrangement, and he's helped us a lot. But Swacker has grown real nice. Swacker's doing really good. Come Here Deer, on the other hand, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to make sales and get sales where we need it to be, but we don't market, we don't advertise it because there's no room, there's no margins that give you room to advertise. So it's a great product, and Walmart still sells some, but it's a skeleton of what it used to be. So that put our hunting show in a bind.
Right. Well, you were saying before in previous podcasts how expensive it is to do TV. So like all of your funds that you would make from your sponsors at the end of the year would just end up going back into television production.
Hunting TV is tough, boy. People don't realize it. And the way we tried to do it, the Drurys, Mark and Terry, they figured it out. Lee and Tiffany, they lived in the right place. Tiffany's beautiful, and Lee's a good-looking guy, and they had chemistry, and they had good places to hunt. They made that thing work really well. Jim Shockey, unusual guy, a real John Wayne character, he made it work. And there were a couple other shows out there that have done real well. But that is a challenge, boy, that hunting show. We did it for 15 years. We lost money every single year. And when the Come Here Deer sales went down, we started losing more money. So it was hard to keep hunting going. Right. And then we had Billy got married, and then Hank Jr. had more children. So those guys didn't want to travel as much. So old Dad is the guy that's sitting in the tree every single day of November from daylight to dark. And I'm going to tell you, I love deer hunting, but you can get too much banana pudding.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Can be too much.
Every day. And so it was a grind for me from September through January. I was somewhere hunting. And my fishing sponsors didn't like it, and I missed out on a lot of fall and wintertime fishing, which I really, really enjoyed, but we didn't have time for it.
Yeah. You had other priorities for sure.
Yeah, so Billy came back to me and said, hey, Dad, I'm doing a lot better in real estate than I've ever done hunting. Would it hurt your feelings if we were to give up the hunting show?
Give up flesh and blood, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, first it was NASCAR, then it was that. But I mean, I believe that everything happens for a reason. Who's to say if they stayed in NASCAR, even if they did make it big, if they didn't end up like Dale or something tragic would happen. You know, that's a very dangerous sport. I don't think anything happens out of pure luck or pure coincidence.
Hank Jr. was airlifted twice. He was airlifted in Texas, and everybody thought he had died. I didn't know. It took 2 hours for me to get from the racetrack to Parkland Hospital, where he was transported by helicopter. I don't miss those days.
No.
I don't miss sitting in the grandstands watching crazy Billy Parker sideways.
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I know how they are as my uncles. I couldn't imagine them on the racetrack.
I don't miss that. It is. I miss being with them, and I miss hanging out with them at the racetrack. But the suspense, the drama, and the danger, I can do with that.
Knowing you can watch your son die at any second, I think that makes any parent kind of clinch up a little bit.
I don't miss that. But the hunting shows, we had so much fun when we first started that. We all traveled together, and we roomed together, and we hung out together.
Right.
And I would run camera a lot of times for them, and that was just so special. And then as time went on, they all got their lives pulled in different directions, and we didn't have time to make that happen. So those were all ventures. I'm very blessed man that I was able to do the things that I've been able to do throughout my life. And I'm at a great place right now. I'm back. I'm fishing. I fish a lot. I fish a lot for fun, as you well know that. I hook up and go to the lake all by myself.
I know.
Yeah,
I know good and well.
And I love learning, and I love to be able to share knowledge and tips. And I don't do as much sharing as I probably should, but I do enjoy that. And the more you learn, I tell people this all the time about archery. Levi is so good, and he explains Tack Vanes, which is a company that I'm a part of, LRP, Long Range Performance Arrows. Levi can explain to you to help you or to help me. He helped me so much in explaining to me, no, you need left-hand helica, you need this, you need that. Why? And he can explain all of that, which I have no way of knowing that. I don't shoot enough to have the knowledge that he has. And I tell people that have a job, man, you work, you go to work, you can't know what I know about fishing line. You cannot know what I know about a rod. You don't have enough time. You don't spend enough hours. I can't come close to knowing what Levi knows about archery. I don't spend the time. So if he'll take his time, get all this stuff figured out, and then tell me, that's a huge shortcut for me. That's the same thing that I try to do with fishing. I go and people say, well, why are you going fishing? I want to learn something. I got this idea. They got a new line. Berkeley's got a new line. They're going to introduce it this month at ICAST. I can't tell you the name of it, but it's a new fluorocarbon line that's incredible. I want to know about that line. I want to be able to tell you that line is incredible. I want to be honest. I want to use it.
Right.
They had 2 other lines that they had experimental that I said, don't bring it to market. I don't like it. It's not going to perform up to people's expectations. Scrap it. Well, we think that. Well, I don't think this. I know this. I know this. And so they end up scrapping it. They came out with a line called Forward that is just incredible line. It's incredible.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's pretty cool.
But before I say it's incredible, I want to use it and I want to be honest about it.
Right.
And if it's not good, I tell it like it is. And so I need to do that. That's a good place for me to be. I'm right where I need to be. I go fishing. I'm on my own schedule. I do what I want to do. I love doing this podcast because I like talking about history.
I know. I've learned so much just from sitting here. We've been doing this, a little over a year?
Yeah.
And I have learned so much about fishing, so much about where the sport's going. It's stuff I didn't even know about you. It's a learning experience. And, sometimes I'll just get a text message, hey, we're shooting a podcast today. What are we shooting on? Oh, I have no idea. We'll figure it out as we go. And,
Yeah.
So
that's the way I've always been. I shoot from the hip. So we're going to, now that we've got most of the stories that I want to tell out in the open, We're going to do more
Yeah.
guests. We got Dale
Yes.
Earnhardt Jr. coming on in the next few weeks. We're going to start doing more guests and opening up to some broader topics, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm where I need to be. I'm not going to go back racing. I'm not going to go back into the hunting TV business. People say, well, you gave up the TV business. No, I didn't. I gave up the hunting TV business. I still love the reason I do my show, Hank Parker's Outdoor Magazine, 41 years. I
Yeah.
love it. I still have fun.
Right.
And as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to keep doing it.
There you go. Well, with all that being said, I think that wraps up your story time here for the week. For
Connect
sure.
the dots from a dummy.
Connect the dots.
From a dummy to success to a dummy and back to a dummy. So
I was gonna say, I think there was one constant there throughout the whole years.
from rags to fishing to riches, from riches to from fishing to racing to rags. I'll get that
There
right.
you
in a minute.
go.
From
Say that 5 times
to
fast.
fishing to riches to racing
To rags. To
Full
rags
circle,
again.
brother. Full circle.
Full circle. Well,
All
with
right.
all that being said, you can check out all of our links on the description below. We want to say a thank you to our sponsors, Mossy Oak and Liquid Molly. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys next week.
And I'll be right there with her. So thank you for being with us, and God bless you. I'm Hank Parker.